Let me move on to another big issue, and that's Afghanistan. When are we going to hear the president's decision about whether to send more troops?
I mean, the president is going to be making that decision when he is ready to announce it. I think he stopped at Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska on his way to Asia. And I know that he told the troops there that he's going to make a decision that will give them the support they need for the mission that he asks them to fulfill, and that he's also going to make the case to the American public, both to support the mission and, as always, to support our troops.
Let me zero in on a key issue here, and that, of course, is the issue of how many troops. We know General McChrystal's requesting 40,000 troops or perhaps more. General Eikenberry, the U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, weighed in on this topic, and it was reported on this week, as you well know. This is what the Washington Post said on Thursday, and I'll read it for you. The U.S. ambassador in Kabul sent 2 classified cables to Washington in the past week expressing deep concerns about sending more U.S. troops to Afghanistan until President Karzai's government demonstrates that it is willing to tackle the corruption and mismanagement that has fueled the Taliban's rise. The ambassador also has worried that sending tens of thousands of additional American troops would increase the Afghan government's dependence on U.S. support at a time when its own security forces should be taking on more responsibility for fighting. It's been reported that you actually support as many as 30,000 additional troops being sent to Afghanistan. Obviously, Ambassador Eikenberry reports up to you. What is your response to those cables and to that point of view?
Well, David, of course, I'm not going to discuss any of the confidential advice that anyone has provided me or the president during this process. But I think what you obviously know is that there are many different views about how best to work with the Afghan government. And one of the points that we are stressing is that our goal is to disrupt, dismantle, and defeat al-Qaeda. That's why we're in Afghanistan. It's about our national security. We do want to see the Afghans be able to defend themselves, which means being able to stand up a security force that is capable of fighting the Taliban, which is a part of the syndicate of terror that was basically inspired, funded, and directed by al-Qaeda. But we're going to expect more from the Afghan government going forward, and we've got some very specific asks that we will be making.
Do you believe that President Karzai is an effective partner, a reliable partner, and that sending more U.S. troops would actually be effective?
Well, again, I believe that he has his strengths and he has his weaknesses. Certainly, there are many improvements in Afghanistan over the last 8 years, but there has not been the kind of open, transparent, accountable government that stood against corruption, that delivered services to people that I think the people of Afghanistan are seeking and that we would all like to see for them. And particularly, we have some work to do to assist and mentor and train an Afghan security force. You know, what I hear all the time from people in Afghanistan and reports from others who are talking on a regular basis to people across the country is that the basic attitude in Afghanistan is they do not want to see a return of the Taliban. That was a horrible period that they remember all too well. They do want security. They want a government that can protect them and can, deliver at least some services, whether it's from the central government or the local district government. They also want to make sure that we help them create a security force that can then take over. As one person memorably said, look, we want your help to enable us to defend ourselves, and then we want you to go. Well, that's a pretty good summary of what we want to do. We want to get al-Qaeda, we want to disrupt, dismantle, and defeat those who attacked us, and we want to be able to give the Afghans the tools that they need to be able to defend themselves. We're not interested in staying in Afghanistan. We're not interested in any long-term, presence there. We came to do a job, and unfortunately it wasn't done over the last 8 years.
Define the exit strategy if that's the president's view.
I'm not going to define the president's view, and I'm not going to define the exit strategy from a mission that he hasn't even yet announced to the American public. And I guess I would just put this in a larger context with making these points, David. Number one, I have traveled consistently for the last 9 months. I think I've been in more than 40 countries. I've met with countless leaders. I've done a lot of public diplomacy, getting out there, listening to people. I don't think I can overstate how damaged our country was in the eyes of people around the world when President Obama took office. And we've been working very hard to just get us back to a point where, we can have the kind of open, candid conversations that lead to decisions being made that will benefit the United States and move us toward goals like, more peaceful, prosperous outcomes for us and many parts of the world. Secondly, I think it's important to underscore that we see the fight against al-Qaeda and the syndicate of terror in the security interests of the United States. I think that kind of got lost the last 8 years with a lot of talk about how it wasn't important to get bin Laden, that, we were there for some other reason. No, it's critical to get those who attacked us. That is what we are there for. And what we are trying to do is to assess the best way forward so that we can go anywhere in the United States and anywhere in the world and say the same thing. You have to understand that we believe this syndicate of terror is a threat, not just to the United States and our friends and allies, but to Pakistan, Afghanistan, and many others.